Would you object to a 31-year-old dating a 21-year-old?
And I said, I think I would think it's kind of weird, but I don't
Would you think it's predatory?
No. I mean, like 30 and 20 isn't like that massive of an age gap.
Okay.
I mean, like 10 years, but also it's different. Like 18 years old is very different than 21 years old.
Okay, how about 19 and 29? How about that?
I would think that was weird, yeah.
You would object to that?
I mean, I can't object to anybody's relationship, but I can consider something like
you would consider it
predatory.
Weird.
I would consider it weird, absolutely.
Would you consider it predatory?
I don't think that there's anything a 29-year-old will have in common with an 18, 19-year-old.
Sex?
If that's the basis of it, then again, that's predatory and weird.
Women are so much more emotionally mature than men, though. Like, don't you all agree with that?
I
definitely mature way faster than men. Like, I feel like I was intellectually superior by at least 5-10 years to most of the men in my grade.
I definitely agree with that. Like, I've heard like some girls say like, oh, like date older men because naturally men are like
it makes you on the same level naturally.
Yeah, like they said like men are naturally like 10 years more immature than they really are.
That's
so then when
true.
You're dating,
it's actually true, no, because that's why they say men reach their peak at 30. It's because it's true.
Yeah, but we also shouldn't be like, oh, well, like that's a man at that point. Like he's, like that's a full-grown man. Like frontal lobe developed. That 18-year-old frontal lobe isn't developed yet. So I think we really have to take that into consideration because if I was making this, I've made some crazy decisions when I was 18 and 19 years old and maybe even now. But like when it comes to like if I was dating like a 40-year-old, like that man, that is a man.
I mean, the frontal lobe doesn't fully
develop.
Hold
on. Just to bring it back really quick onto this point. So I want to make sure I understand your argument properly. Mm-hmm. So 31-year-old with 21-year-old, the word you would use is weird or predatory?
I mean, well, not predatory. I think it would be strange. Again,
weird.
Again, my argument is mainly against teenagers. I don't think that 40-year-old men should be going after 18 and 19-year-olds. Yeah. I think that that's predatory.
Well, the brain isn't fully developed until the age of 25. So are you saying that we should up the age of consent to 25?
No, I'm saying
that's not what anyone is saying.
That's not what I said at all. I said
if a 19-year-old wants to talk to an 18-year-old, that's completely viable and completely like normal. That's a normal age.
Okay.
Yeah.
So hold on, just a question. So okay, let's use teenager, right? So 19-year-old. Sure. Mm-hmm. We'll use a 19-year-old that's still a teenager, although I think it is a bit. It's like you're using language to like, because a teenager could also be someone who's 13. Right. But like, it's a bit like you're trying to paint it in a certain way. But fine, let's say a 19-year-old. You would object to 19 and 29.
Yeah.
Okay.
Not object.
Okay, and would you object to a 19-year-old woman starting an OnlyFans?
Yeah. I already said that, yes.
Yeah. Oh, you would?
Yeah, I did, yes.
Did. Okay, darn, you've got me. Okay, well,
I already said I think
what's the minimum age then to start an OnlyFans?
I would, to be honest, I would probably wait till like 25. We were having this conversation earlier, and I think that there are a lot of pros and cons to doing it, and I think that a lot of 18-year-old women are starting OnlyFans under the guise of these women that have these massive platforms telling them, you're going to make a ton of money, you're going to get all this money, you should sign up when you're 18, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, but I don't think that they really realize what they're actually doing with their life and the things that will follow from that because they're just thinking they're going to make a ton of money when in reality they're not.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So I do not think that 18-year-olds should.
We had a very in-depth convo about
I do not think that 18-year-olds should start OnlyFans. I don't think that 19-year-olds should start OnlyFans. I think that women should take a long, hard look at what that means and what the pros are and what the cons are. And I think that you should wait till you're older because I started mine when I was 27.
Okay.
I absolutely agree with
you. One sec. So just to bring it back to, I think you said, well, what does a 31-year-old have in common with a 21-year-old, right?
18.
Yeah. 21 is like,
I mean, you could still say the same. What does a 31-year-old have?
Sure, if you want to argue 21, we can do that.
Okay, fine, 29 to 19. Okay. It's
That's
not clear
to
to me that having commonality with someone is a primary attraction trigger.
I mean, like you don't find attraction to people that you have things in common with and that you talk to and can like understand where they're at in their life and their life experiences and things like that because a 29-year-old and a 19-year-old have very, very different life experience. And a 29-year-old is going to be able to manipulate a 19-year-old very, very easily.
Not necessarily.
I mean, in most cases.
Well, I mean, we were previously talking about this, how women mature a bit faster. And I would say women actually get a lot more I think women are much more socially attuned than men are. So, I mean, you can make the argument in a lot of cases that women socially can actually run circles around men.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say
Like,
for a
if-
29 or 30-year-old man, I think that's like a massive difference.
Not necessarily. I mean, he could be, say he's maybe not the most attractive guy. Maybe he's got a job. Like a 19-year-old girl who's kind of a fucking hustler could go in there and absolutely run circles around a dude who's in his late 20s or early 30s. If she's a hustler, a 19-year-old chick that's a hustler could absolutely fucking run circles around like some like naive 30-year-old who doesn't have much of a relationship experience. Take, for example, maybe a guy who's not particularly attractive. He's going to get fucking played. He's going to get got. So
That's true.
I'm not saying that's going to be the case for like most women. I'm not saying most women are hustlers like that, but like, you know, they can get got, you know? So, but I mean, this idea that commonality, I mean, have you ever had a ton of things in common with someone and there was no attraction?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, sure, all the time. But like every relationship I've ever had, I've had things to talk about with them in commonality, whether it's life experience or things we've gone through or hobbies or activities or whatever the case may be. I've also never been attracted to a man that I have nothing in common with.
But also, would you agree that today's generation is growing up much faster as well? Like, I think back to me being an 18-year-old versus the 18-year-olds nowadays. Like, they're talking about shit, doing shit, and aware of shit that I had no clue about at their age. And so it's also just a sign of the times to a degree, honestly.
No, I agree.
Yeah. Thank you.
I get it.
I don't know. If a girl's 5'3" and wants to date a guy who's 6'4", you wouldn't say, but you don't have anything in common with him.
That's a physical thing. That has nothing to do with life experience or like commonality.
Okay. Well, I mean, okay, what
What
is the advantage? Say you're a 31-year-old guy. What advantages are there to dating a 31-year-old woman versus a 21-year-old woman?
I mean, as far as life experience, already having partnerships, knowing what you want, knowing what you don't want, being able to talk about those things, having healthy communication and boundaries because you've put in the work through your 20s in order to have those healthy relationships. A 19-year-old probably hasn't done that.
So what I hear is more sexual partners, more relationship baggage, more relationship trauma.
I don't think that
No.
I don't consider
That's what
any
I
of
hear.
that because every relationship that I've been in, I wouldn't consider traumatic. I mean, a lot of those were experiences that I had positive experiences with people that I dated where I came
Sure.
out and I said, you want to know what? Like, I really like this about him and I really didn't like this. And this is something that I realized in my life that this is something I don't agree with or want. I mean, go back to Jonah Hill. If I was him and I started dating that surfer girl after all of my other experiences, I go, you know what? This doesn't really align with what I want in my life. So I would just choose not to date that person. I mean, you just know what you want. Whereas a 19-year-old has no freaking clue what they want. Realistically.
I've met a lot of women of varying ages, and I don't think. I mean, maturity is not a given, even if you are older.
Well,
There's
of
a lot of
course.
immature people, a lot of people with trauma and baggage and issues that you can find at pretty much any age.
Right. But I mean, a lot of the reasoning that these men say they want an 18, 19-year-old is because they lack baggage and lack trauma. So by your...
And they're also more physically attractive.
I mean, I think that's subjective.
Well, I mean, how dare a man be attracted to a woman at the height of her physical attractiveness
I'm
and
not
fertility?
saying... Yeah, I didn't say that he can't be attracted to somebody that age, but I think when you get to a certain point, it's more so like, oh, she lacks experience. I'm able to take advantage of that. She doesn't have these hang-ups.
That's kind of projection.
But you're implying that primordial attraction is predatory. I mean, it could be predatory, but that's not always the case.
I mean, when you're coming at it as, oh, she doesn't have any baggage, she doesn't have any relationship experience,
Yeah.
this is somebody
some
that I
people
can
don't
easily
wanna-
take advantage
it's like
of.
some people don't want to deal with that.
It's
Like a lot of people aren't equipped
Don't want to
with
deal
that.
with
Someone
emotional
regular
Like,
life.
Yeah, baggage,
with
trauma.
life.
Some people don't want to have to deal with
Some
trauma.
people
They don't
aren't
want to have
emotionally
to.
equipped to
They
that.
just want to
Don't
become
get
somebody
into-
else's trauma.
No,
that
that's
is
not it at all.
that
It's
is
just-
a very bleak way of looking at relationships.
Women, especially with the incidence of mental health that's gone up, like I'm sure you'll at least know, like most of your friends at least have anxiety or depression or some form of mental illness. You get a girl who's younger, closer to a blank slate than anything, low body count, has not been tainted by the world. Like, why doesn't that make more sense? Going to be less combative, fight with you less, more respectful in the relationship. and
Because
doesn't
they
have
have
any
less
baggage holding it back.
experience.
Yeah.
I mean, life experience for sure helps, but I feel like for trauma, it can go one of two ways with women. It could ruin them, or it could make them stronger. And the percentile that it makes stronger is very minimal by comparison.
And I think trauma affects the way that relationships go. Like, it has a lot to do with relationships. Like, oh, I'm traumatized because this happened to me.
So these
and
older
this is
men
how
have
I'm
no
gonna
trauma?
project it.
Yeah,
No, no, no.
these men don't have any trauma.
This is
No,
how
they do,
like,
Again, men and women are different. Trauma affects men differently than women, I believe.
It does.
Oh
And
my
I don't think
God.
it's the partner's responsibility to have someone with that amount of emotional baggage. I think it's absolutely okay to be like, I don't want someone who is still dealing with these problems. Like, maybe if they've healed from it, it's fine. But like, there's certain people who aren't equipped to deal with that sort of thing. And some people don't want a relation. Some people are seeking casual relationships. You don't want to, and they don't seek out relationships with this amount of depth to them. And so you don't really want someone who might harm them in some way, not harm physically or harm emotionally, but there are certain behaviors that traumatized people might exhibit due to their trauma that might hurt the relationship. And I myself have trauma, and I'm not going to go ahead and dump it, but I'm saying that has absolutely affected the way I've interacted with people. That's affected the way that I've loved people. That's affected the way that I've received love. And I think it's just not, I don't blame the people for not wanting that.
What's your question? Then we have a couple chats. Go ahead.
I was just going to ask, I'm curious if anyone knows, how does trauma affect men and women differently, or like how does that come out differently?
If anything, what I've heard is that men with mental disorders and usually show it way more than women do. Like borderline personality disorder, men tend to be way more aggressive than women do, than women are. So I think you are a little bit wrong with that, because some men simply cannot control themselves.
Well, that's the way it's exhibited. It's going back to the saying that like men and women commit suicide equally, but most men actually die of suicide because when it hits them, it's going to actually affect them.
Most women attempt more because, let me finish. Most women attempt more because men don't care about how they want to do it in the most crazy way possible.
Okay, let's move on from that. Okay, let me do some chats here. We have